In his recently published book, Stand By Her, author John W. Anderson addresses this question. When a woman you love is diagnosed with breast cancer, what can you do to help her? That's what Anderson asked himself when his wife and business partner Sharon, as well as his sister, his mother, and his mother's best friend, each became a breast cancer patient. In Stand By Her, a breast cancer guide for men, Anderson talks to husbands, sons, fathers, brothers, and friends about what they can do to become a caregiver for their loved ones. Anderson is president and founder of The Farm, an advertising and production company with offices in New York and Virginia. Also an attorney specializing in entertainment and business law, Anderson is an Emmy-nominated director of television commercials. As a writer, his work has appeared in publications including The New York Times, Rolling Stone, and The Nation. John Anderson, welcome to the interview.
Thank you.
Talk about your first thoughts, John, when you found out your wife, Sharon Rappaport, had been diagnosed with breast cancer. And of course, you had been through this before in your family with your mother.
Well, it was a shock for me because my mom had died of breast cancer in '88, and Sharon was diagnosed in 2001, so it was just kind of a shock, shutdown mode for me for a little bit.
You know, in general, do you think sometimes it's hard for men to, well, I guess one of the reasons you wrote the book, that it's hard for men to just relate to, especially something like breast cancer with women, you know, something that attacks for femininity in a lot of ways. Is it hard for men to relate to that right off the bat?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, breast cancer is 99% plus a female disease. I mean, men get it 1%, less than 1%. But overall, yeah, I mean, you know, it's a feminine, it's an attack on femininity.
Now, you've been through this before because you basically at one point said, even though you wrote the book in a short period of time, basically it was something that was in the back of your mind for years. Your mom died of breast cancer, and you've had other family members or friends of the family that have been diagnosed with breast cancer.
Yeah, after my mom was diagnosed, a friend of hers was diagnosed, and I was involved with her treatment. And then my wife was diagnosed in 2001, and then my sister was diagnosed the next year in 2002.
What struck you, and of course that's one of the things that led to the book, what struck you is what information and resources did you feel were lacking right off the bat to help men deal with breast cancer in their family?
Well, there really wasn't any information out there for men. It was all targeted to women, and a lot of the support groups, support organizations, as great as they are, like the Komens and the Reach for Recovery and all these different organizations are all targeted to the women. And there really is nothing out there for men. And in fact, I'm working now with some other people like Mark Silver, who wrote a book called Breast Cancer Husband, and some other guys that have been kind of through it. And we're trying to consolidate all those people that are kind of advocates for this to kind of join forces and create something that's for and about men going through this with their loved ones. And that's not just their wives, but their sisters, their moms, their friends, their coworkers, their daughters.
Do you think in general men need help with the whole sensitivity issue anyway? I mean, this is a very sensitive, obviously a very sensitive subject for a lot of people. Is that something that men need help with anyway, do you think?
Some men do, a lot, you know, and some men don't. I mean, I think it's, you know, people in interviews I've had, people say, oh, you know, men, they're not really programmed or genetically engineered to be caregivers, but then you look at how good they are as dads. And you say, well, they're doing a pretty dang, they're making lunches, they're taking care of the kids, they're going to the doctor, going to all the meetings at school. So it's in there. It just has to go to the next stage when someone gets sick.
Right. And I guess actually it may be a generational thing where this, you know, current generation of people, men as opposed to maybe 30, 40 years ago, there are a lot more sharing of responsibilities at the house because both people work in a lot of cases, things like that. So maybe it's easier for men now to pick up some of the load?
Well, they have more practice than they did a generation or two ago, but it's a lot more load because she's got to focus on her treatment, and where you might have had support from her, now she has to focus on her body more and her friends and getting there, getting through this. And so a lot of that's going to come on you as a caregiver.
I know some of the things you write about in the book, Stand By Her, A Breast Cancer Guide for Men, you talk about being a better listener, being affectionate, putting her needs first, giving her private time when she needs that, and doing more pitching in with chores and things like that.
Yeah, and one of the things is to laugh. I kind of talk about the need and to be able to take a break. I think guys sometimes try to be a little too chivalrous sometimes, and it gets to be a little, you can overload, you can redline, and you need to kind of step off, take a break, and then come back.
Right. But on the other hand, you don't want to seem like you're ignoring the issue. I
No.
mean, it's sort of a tightrope with men and women anyway about you know, too sensitive, not sensitive enough. So this just, I guess, brings it all to another
And
height.
again, it's based on what her personality is. I mean, you got to kind of follow her lead and what she feels good about. Sometimes she'll want a lot of people around her. Sometimes other women will want nobody around her. So you may think it's better one way or another, but you got to kind of do what works for her.
Are there special challenges? Talk about the special challenges in dealing with breast cancer in the family, John. You know, maybe as even opposed to other life-threatening diseases, the special challenges in dealing with breast cancer in the family.
Well, a challenge for a guy is as we said earlier, is it's a woman's disease primarily, and so the challenge is to kind of understand what she's going through when you're not a woman. That's kind of hard. I mean, I think other things are. It's hard to get your feelings out. I mean, I talk about that a lot in the book. I think it's very important for guys to reach out to other guys or other people that have gone through it for support, because they kind of man up, if you will, and shut down, and they might throw themselves into work or say everything's fine and be super stoic about it when they're not fine. And I think they have to be very aware that they're not fine and that they need to reach out, and it's okay to reach out.
You know, the other thing about breast cancer, too, it's a potentially disfiguring disease for women, too, so there's a sexuality component to it, and that both men and women have to deal with.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, if she has a mastectomy of one or both her breasts, all kinds of things, and then she may have subsequent surgeries. If she's at high risk for ovarian cancer or something, she might have to have a hysterectomy. So there can be a chain reaction of things that happen. And she might be going through, if she's older, she might have gone through menopause. So yeah, there's all kinds of factors. And each, again, is she younger, sometimes she might want to have children. And can she have kids? You know, if she's young in her 20s and never been pregnant, that's a big deal too. She's going to feel like, what guy's going to want me? I'm damaged goods. And that's a big deal.
And that's something that, of course, the man in her life has to deal with.
Yeah, or the man coming into her life. I mean, she may be single. And so that's where situations like the father is really important, her dad is really important, or her brothers or her friends, to make her feel whole again. Because she's thinking, who's going to want me after this? And
that's one thing you want to point out, that the book is not just written for spouses of women, it's written for the men in her life.
Yeah, and it's also, I think it's good for even the patient to read it, because it gives her the perspective of the men in her life of what they're going through. And it's also, the doctors are reading it as well in the medical community about how they can be better caregivers themselves in the medical treatment with this kind of thing going on around the patient.
You were on the Today Show fairly recently talking about Stand By Her. Just talk about the reaction after the appearance on the Today Show, and just the reaction in general, John, to the book, both from men and women, the feedback you're getting.
Well, it's very positive. I mean, the press has really picked it up, because I think they see that this is kind of the elephant in the room in this subject matter. It's kind of unique for them versus, Breast Cancer Awareness Month or whatever. And yeah, the readers have been, I've gotten a lot of great compliments from the readers that have helped a lot of people, and they've contacted me, and I'm available to help out any way I can with the guys going through it.
Is there things in here that even the women going through this, or women can benefit from the book?
Oh yeah, from knowing what they're going through, but also how to maybe communicate with the guys that's not opening up. There's techniques in there about how to kind of encourage dialogue and discussion of tough things going on. This
type of a book, do you see that it would be applicable to people dealing with other illnesses? Some version of this?
Oh yeah, it could. I mean, there's things specific to breast cancer, but there's a lot of things in there specific to any disease and how you be a better caregiver, whether it's heart disease or anything else.
Okay. The book is Stand By Her, A Breast Cancer Guide for Men. John W. Anderson is the author. And John, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
This is The Interview. I'm Gene Marrano. We'll be right back.